Hello, everybody. Wow, we're all in a good mood. You know why? The Lobos experienced their first victory since the cow jumped over the moon. Danny Gonzalez, our brand new football coach, told us it was going to happen. They needed to progress gradually, and they have. And what a feeling in Las Vegas the other night at Boyd Stadium when the Lobos upset Wyoming 17-16. Wow, emotional and then some. I had tears in my eyes at the end of that game. It's emotional still because I mean to tell you, I've been watching Lobo games my entire life. I used to take a bus from 4th Street in Candelaria and 12th Street in Candelaria to go to Central, get a transfer, and then get up to University Boulevard, get off the bus, and then walk to the stadium. And those were the great old days. I've been watching Lobo football since then. I think I'm the biggest Lobo fan of all time, all sports. But I have a good friend named Fred Hultberg who's going to be on our show in about 30 minutes. I have to give him the gavel. I have to pass the award to him because, believe me, I've been to thousands of Lobo events, but he's beat me, and he'll qualify that with his story. And he's going to tell us what it feels like for, because he's emotional when it comes to his Lobos. What did it feel like to him to experience victory the other night through his television screen? And we're all reluctant to get on airplanes to go out to Las Vegas to watch that game because of the COVID. We have to be careful. We have to be safe. So most Lobo fans were here in New Mexico watching an emotional thriller. Well, I'm telling you, it's emotional. It's all over me today. It's all over all of you too. Fred Hultberg will be here. We're trying to get Danny on the show, but Danny has coaches meetings this morning. So we might not, but we will have him for you this week for sure. Today, we retell a story. There's that story with Chris Moya the other day. When Chris went off the air, my phone lit up from close friends and said it touched their heart. Run it again, Henry, please, because they wanted their wives and children to see the story about Chris Moya. And then later I thought, it's a compelling story. Maybe the greatest emotional love story I've ever known, that I certainly have ever told or been a part of. So I said, I'm going to get Angela, his beautiful wife, on to tell her side of that amazing story. And she's on today. Chris will join her here in a few minutes and tell his side of how Angela was there for him every second of the way. But Angela Moya is on with us right now, and I give a heart-warm welcome to Angela Moya right now as we bring her on the screen. Angela, good morning to you. How are you?
I'm great, Henry. How are you? Thank you for having me. Thank you.
It's wonderful to have you.
Thank
You
you.
know, we have heard the story. I can't hear it enough because I hear the story, I get emotional. It motivates me. It brings out the best in Henry T.
Oh,
And I thank you both for that. But
well,
you have something to say about that story. I would like to just put you on stage right now. Start the story where you remember it starting and carry it smoothly and rather quickly to the conclusion, the happy conclusion to your story with Chris. You're on stage, go for it.
well, thank you. Thank you, Henry. Well, many years ago, it's now been about 10 and a half years ago. When we're faced with being ill, I think where I'll start is that to go get help. And it's not a male thing or a female thing. I believe that when we're ill and we know it, it's hard to get help because of being in fear mostly. I believe there's two places that human beings live, and it's either love, which is my favorite four-letter word, along with kids, or fear. And, you never know if you have a chance at living, especially when you're faced with a medical condition. And here in New Mexico, we happen to not have some things that we need when it pertains to the liver. I believe that Chris, when he finally decided to, number one, he's had a deep faith. But number two, he decided, he chose himself, because I believe God chose him. He chose himself and decided to get help, and it was in the nick of time. We couldn't get much done here in New Mexico, unfortunately. It wound up at Mayo Clinic first, and then on to Baylor. And Chris was very quickly listed and given some really bad news. He only had 6 months to live. And, what I saw in Chris and what I began to feel in the community, there was a tremendous amount of love and support. And I think it built this momentum of doing all that we can, to live, which ironically, that's what we're faced with today. And, when you embrace love and you embrace positivity and decide that you want to do something, I believe a human being becomes unstoppable, especially with a connection of spirit. And I watched Chris. It's been amazing. And even though we were in the worst of times, we experienced the life-saving gift of someone who passed. Chris received a cadaver donor liver. And the process is, it hasn't changed much in 10 years, unfortunately. For the type of transplant that Chris had, he received a liver from someone who had passed. And I'm still in awe of that entire process. And by the way, I would be remiss before I forget that if you want to be an organ donor, please go to newmexicoorgandonor.org, and you can do it online, because you could save someone's life. But back on track with Chris, while we were in Mayo Clinic, at Mayo Clinic, it was the most amazing team to be surrounded by. I always equate things to sports. And let me just say, there's some pretty famous quarterbacks out there, but when you're dealing with the best, Mayo Clinic and Baylor in downtown Dallas, they were amazing. Quick was quickly diagnosed. He was listed very, very high on the list and given a short time to live. So we were what's called dually listed. And he wound up getting a liver in Dallas, and it was miraculous what we experienced. But I have to say, we could feel, and we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, even though we can't see, that we were loved up and prayed up. It was absolutely remarkable. And I have to say, I don't think Chris has ever told you this story without getting too personal. I remember thinking that if Chris could have the attitude that he had, which before they wheeled him in for the surgery, before he was giving any type of a relaxation drug, he asked the anesthesiologist and the liver transplant doctor, who, by the way, we're very good friends with. He's actually been in our home. He's stayed at the Moya, and we visited. There's been such a huge connection with him and his team. But what was really remarkable about Chris, before he was wheeled in to the most dangerous surgery, even to this day, on the planet, because every organ, everything that makes the human body work is connected to the liver. And what he said to me was remarkable, and I'll never forget it. And I'm going to try to tell you without crying. He said to me, "Angela, if I wake up and I'm in the hands of God, I'll be waiting. And I remember thinking, okay, you know, we had to prepare. By that time, we had already planned his funeral. But if I wake up and I see your face, game on. We're gonna live completely differently, and we have. You begin to notice everything, even though I wasn't the one going through the transplant. Just watching how Chris propelled himself into knowing that he could leave this earth, that his time might be up, has been very inspiring for me. It was just absolutely beautiful, the process, and he has been rather unscathed. It's not normal for someone to live this long post a transplant. So I thank God every day. And he obviously, he was meant to be here. He continues to, you know, go forward, even though he's on medication that suppresses his immune system. And, you know, I always have to go back to that time. And I put myself there almost every day of my life, because I know that 1 minute from now is not guaranteed. So what we tried to do during that time, and I think it really is applicable to the time that we live in now, you have to find the good. And when you choose to be in that mindset, you can't help but enjoy life, even though we're faced with what we're faced with today, a deadly pandemic. And so our neighbors checked on us. We had people from the golfing community here. New Mexico is amazing, but especially Albuquerque. Even though I'm from Texas, from El Paso, Texas, this city has, it's sunk its claws into my heart and my psyche. And it's been amazing. And I thank everybody. I tried to send out I know I sent out thank you cards, but I'm kind of from the old school, and I just appreciate even being here with you, and knowing that there isn't anything that we can't do when we put our minds to it.
And let me interrupt you a little bit for two things.
Okay.
I want you to tilt your camera down. You've got all this headroom way up here.
Oh,
I'd like
okay.
to tilt your camera down. Oh, beautiful.
Okay.
But I want to ask you, as dramatic as you can be without me overdoing it, in layman's terms, how bad was Chris's condition at that time? I may be as graphic and descriptive as you can be. In layman's terms,
okay,
what condition was he in at that time, at that moment?
He had 1 foot in the grave. It was basically a very dire diagnosis. And the reality is, and again, with all the respect to New Mexico and healthcare workers, my God, I have a daughter. Chris and I have a daughter that's a nurse. We just don't have what's needed here. And it was so hard being away from home and being away from family during that time. But he was at death's door. And it was to a point to where Chris and I weren't guaranteed he wasn't guaranteed his next meal. If you can imagine having to, as you go to each one of these places and they assess, you know, how you're doing, you could die he could have died at any moment. So we kind of broke it down. We would go meal by meal. And I think the most precious thing from it was, that's really outstanding in my mind, is having a peanut butter and jelly sandwich with him in a park in downtown Dallas. Life becomes so simplified. I had a couple of outfits, and I love fashion. I love beauty. I love all of those types of things, but life became very simple. I had maybe 4 outfits, and we were living out of a hotel on Interstate 35 outside of Dallas, Texas. And the lobby of that Marriott was our living room. And so we made friends. We actually have family at that Marriott to this day. And there were people who just rallied around us, and we met a lot of amazing people in the sports world. And I've always affiliated everything I do in life with sports, especially football. You know, Chris got to witness my father met Roger Staubach at a game that we got to go to. All these amazing, it was the worst time, but the best time. And as we continued, and he was kind of the coach at that time, even though he was on the deathbed. He never stopped. He would walk from, after having, I mean, the man had 80 staples in his belly, and he walked out of Baylor and walked to a Catholic church downtown. He just inspired the heck out of me. And miraculously, Chris, and this is unheard of, Chris didn't need pain meds. He couldn't feel the pain, which again, I don't think he's ever really told anybody that. And I believe it was because of his unwavering faith.
Now,
And
he was going to church before he got the transplant?
before and after, yes. I can remember someone telling me that even here at a church here in Albuquerque, he went up to receive communion. And I had someone call me
You
because,
get notice of the transplant being available.
pardon me?
When did you get notice that there was, in fact, a donor, a transplant?
Oh my gosh, we were at the 11th hour. We had actually come home because Chris and I had decided that he wanted to pass away here. So, give me a moment. We got the call while we were driving, and it was, again, another miraculous process of, knowing that I had kind of surrendered, and so had he. And in the moment that I did that, and I mean, in the very moment, we were on a drive watching the sunset, we received the call. It was beautiful. And it was a match. And it was just amazing. In less than 12 hours, we were on a flight to downtown Dallas. And at Baylor, they ushered us in, and there's a gamut of testing that goes on once you receive the call. And just making sure that everything is a match. And it was. It worked out just perfectly. Chris has had
What
one.
was Chris's reaction once he heard there was a liver available? What was his reaction?
His reaction was, I told you I wasn't going to die. He kept telling me that, even though he looked like a shell of himself. To me, he's always beautiful. He's always been beautiful. And it's, all of this is just packaging, but he was emaciated, and he always found a bright side of it. And again, more inspiration for me to just stand up within myself instead of, waving the white flag. He just always seemed to hand me the torch and make me sit up a bit taller and know that he knew, even though he looked like he was going to pass, when
you got to Texas, when you got to the hospital, was the liver already there before you?
Well, they had procured, or they were getting ready to procure a liver from a gentleman that was at Parkland Hospital. Interesting, that's where one of our presidents passed. And they said that at the moment that everything was a match, but they prepare you during this process that, there have been people that have gotten the call 3, 4, and 5 times, and you even get into the OR and they call the surgery off because of one reason or another. You have to have the same blood type. The size of the person has to be somewhat like yours. Chris was actually, as fate would have it, he was number 3 on the list when he received his liver. A liver can be divided into 2 parts. There's lobes of the liver. And let me just preface that with saying I'm not a medical professional, but this is what I was taught by our transplant surgeon. So patient 1 and 2 decided to not take the liver. It was because of it being, at that point, Chris was so close to death. Chris's liver is what is considered high risk. And so we took it. At that point, we would take a liver that had any disease besides Wilson's. We were ready to just, it didn't matter if it had AIDS or anything else. and he had the choice of that. When you become a donor, you have to, pretty much be explicit as to what you've been exposed to. Our liver came from a 41-year-old African-American male in Dallas who was just generous enough to save lives. I don't know much about him other than that. Every year I write a letter to the family. I've wanted to meet them, and you do that through a coordinator.
Take us to the moment when the doctor said we're ready. Did you go in and watch the surgery, or did you have to wait outside?
No, I waited. I waited outside.
What was that moment like when you said, "Be here, Chris," when you come out? Take us to that moment.
So when Chris said to me, "Look, I've got myself in a position to where if I see you when I wake up, fantastic. If I don't, I'll be waiting for you." It was just a really beautiful send off. And I, from that moment, went down to, at Baylor, they have this garden called an interfaith garden. And I'm going to cry again. And so I went down, and the surgery can take anywhere between, if I remember correctly, up to 4 to 10 hours. From what I remember, don't hold me to that. I went to the interfaith garden and just laid it all out like, we had always done. There was a beautiful woman who was a Muslim, and she held my hand and we prayed together. And it was really beautiful. I went back up to the room and, of course, stayed in contact with Chris's mother and father. He's lost his mother since then, but God bless her. But his father, and of course my family, and staying in touch with immediate family, our daughters, and of course all of Chris's co-workers at the time.
Now he's in surgery. What are you doing? How long did it take? What were those emotional times like, just waiting for the doctor to come out and say, "I have great news"?
Well,
how long did it take?
I'm going to say at least 5 hours. Again, lots of praying, lots of support. I spoke with my father quite a bit, Chris's father, his sisters, my sister, her husband, lots of family, just constantly. I just stayed connected to people, and I happened to be the only one there at the time, but we wanted it that way, and so did Chris. It was really beautiful when the doctor walked in to the room. He was really surprised that I was by myself, but I was looking at the window, just focusing on that prayer garden, and I couldn't believe what I was watching while I was there as well. But Baylor has a tremendous facility for transplant patients, and when the doctor walked in, he was a little alarmed that I was alone, but he just sat down and looked me in the eyes, and he said, "Well, it went very well." He said, "I've never had a liver pink up so quickly. There's wonderful blood flow, and things looked great. This liver seemed to be a great match. Obviously they can't make any guarantees. Your first 5 years post a transplant are usually, a lot of people don't make it past that, but Chris has had remarkable and a remarkable experience with this liver, and it has been.
Once you were through with the doctor, he went back in to go to work to do more. How did you feel at the moment he told you it went well? And
I was just thankful. I still to this day just thanking God, being incredibly thankful. Thankful for a second chance, thankful that I'm not a widow, thankful that Chris, is not going to leave before his parents, that I get to spend life with him. We had our marriage, we hadn't been married very long, but I was ecstatic and knew that if we could just make it through it and actually be lucky enough, fortunate enough, and we were blessed enough to my goodness, the odds are stacked against you. Today, 3 people will die today waiting for a liver.
Take us to the moment that you got to see Chris again. By the way, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take 5 minutes away from Fred Hultberg to hear Angela, because we want Chris to come on the line here in a
Oh,
second as well. Take us to the moment you saw Chris after receiving the news from the doctor. What was that very moment like with you and Chris?
well, he was on a ventilator. But it's kind of alarming, actually. He was strapped down from his forehead to his pinky toe. But I grabbed his feet and just thanked him for deciding to stay and being strong enough to making the decision to go through all of this.
Was
To
he
be
awake?
he was not. He was semi-conscious. He didn't like the ventilator, but they had his arm strapped down. I think he wanted that thing out. He tried to talk, but he had a remarkable recovery. He broke a record at that time typically when you have a liver transplant, you're in hospital, you expect anywhere from 14 to 21 days. He was released on day 5.
When he opened his eyes, did he react to seeing you? What was that initial reaction?
Well, just
His
tears.
reaction and your reaction.
Tears of joy. And he said, I told you I wasn't going anywhere. And, I have no words. To this day, I have no words. It's just, for me, it's game on. Let's go do what you said we're going to do. Let's get well and enjoy life and get this behind us. And just, I have never, I know we just had Thanksgiving, but that is something that I celebrate, I'm going to say, on a minute by minute basis, the good and the bad, of everything. So.
Did you embrace immediately?
Yes, of course.
What
yes,
did you say, Angela?
Pardon me?
What did you tell him?
Well, I told him thank you for staying and thanking God for letting him be here. And it's an unbreakable bond, that when you're with someone, when they go through something like that. I just told him how much I loved him and let's get through this. Let's get to the next quarter of what it is that we're going to be doing. Let's move on. And he has done so beautifully. He inspires me every day, every single day.
Prayer was answered.
Yes.
How deep does your faith go because of this experience, Angela?
It's as deep as my liver. It's as deep as anyone. It's deep. It is so deep. And I will always believe. I mean, I live with a miracle. I live with and knowing and seeing, and it's a constant, for me, it's a constant thank you and gratitude, every day.
Wow. When you tell your story and you realize what you went through, you might have gone through that involuntarily, and not being totally conscious of every movement you made because you were in awe, no question about it. So when you retell the story, I know to this day you get emotional. But
yes.
Take us through the quick healing process. And today, he looks better than most of my friends. It has been more than a healing.
Oh my goodness.
Back to normal. Is that accurate?
Yes, I would say 100%. Most people, their lives are never the same. I would say, Chris doesn't take any other medication. He didn't have any other ailments. And, your liver is the organ that runs everything in the body. It's the one that stores the vitamins to feed everything in the body, the vitamins, the proteins, the nutrients. And this man and the beautiful donor that gave him the liver are a perfect match. And
how often do you talk about this unbelievable moment? And what has it done for your faith today? What does it do for those that you share this miracle with?
Well, throughout the years, it's been a decade now, and throughout the years, I do love telling the story. I try, I can't help but be emotional, but I always try to keep that in check. And the fear of there's so many. What I've noticed is that when people hear about a liver transplant, it's become this. I guess because it's so attached to alcoholism and being a drug addict, and this is what I have to say about that. Listen, we all have our vices, and if you are struggling, there is hope for you. Even if you live here in New Mexico, look, even though there's not a liver transplant doctor here, there's some wonderful facilities that can help you and help guide you along your way. Just go get the help that you need so you can get a liver. Anyone can have a liver transplant if you just decide you want to live, and if you've been doing some things that have kept you from maybe
What is
even
the
being on the list.
definition of life today for you and Chris?
The definition of life, and it's again my favorite 4-letter word. I know I make a lot of people nervous when I say that, but it is love. Love is it's just love. And it sounds cliche and not deep, but it is all about love. And it heightened my awareness about people. I wasn't a very good neighbor. I've tried to be a better neighbor since my own neighbors checked
How do you treat each other today? You and Chris. How do you treat each other today?
Oh my gosh, it's not always perfect, but with the highest level of love and respect. I have such an admiration for Chris, and we're just like anybody else. We have our differences. We see things differently. We don't see things always the same, but there is, like, if you really break things down, Chris and we are way more alike than we are different, even in our differences. And we could all use a little more of that these days. You can disagree with someone and still be respectful and loving.
Can we bring Kristen to sit next to you?
Sure.
He can tell me in his words what his beautiful wife means to him.
Sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Bring Kristen there right now, because we're at the end of our time.
I'm going to grab that chair. Right, that one right there. Just so that.
Just have him sit real close. I think there's
okay. Okay, perfect.
Yeah, there he is.
Oh,
we're gonna one more minute.
Am I in there?
Perfect. Wow, what a couple. Chris, in your words right today, how much did Angela do for you during that time of your life?
Say that question again. I want to make sure I get the question correct.
How much did she do for you at that time?
What didn't she do is probably the better question. She did everything. She was the one that I was in no condition to. I didn't have any energy. I wasn't in any condition to go out and hustle what she did. And she went out and talked to doctors. She called hospitals in Colorado, Arizona, California, Texas. She went and pursued. She talked to the insurance company. At first, the insurance company didn't want to fund the transplant, and she fought with them and said, "Well, if it comes down to it, I'm going to get a lawyer," because I know that our insurance card had a special emblem on the back of the card that was regional. I didn't have to stay in New Mexico, that I could actually go outside of the state.
Without a referral. Imagine that.
So, I mean, she did everything for me. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. I mean, I have the will to live? Yes. But it wasn't like I was in any condition to go out there and do what she did. And then she set the wheels in motion. She's the one that did everything, to the point where I got from here to Scottsdale, back to here, to Dallas. She made the arrangements with the hotels. She made the arrangements with the doctors on my appointments. So yeah, I was like, I was taking her leadership and just following her. That's all I was doing.
At that time, I had to be coach and quarterback and owner.
Here's the most rhetorical question you've ever heard. How much do you love this lady, Chris?
Well, There's your answer. Speechless.
Angela, the same rhetorical question for you.
It's not
How deep
measurable.
does your love go for Chris?
It's not measurable. It's bigger than the universe. It's bigger than, I don't know. I know God is big. So as big as God? Yes.
Amen. And right now, you're blessing thousands of people with your story.
Well, you are a blessing to us. And you know, there's a big part of me that wants to interview you, you know, just so you know, those butterflies went away.
Well,
I
I'm blessed
wonder.
to be able to be in this situation. This is truly one of the highlights of my career.
Oh,
How much is it added to your faith, Chris?
Well, I've always been pretty strong in my faith, but you can't imagine the amount of love and prayers and concern that were directed solely for one purpose, and that was to get a transplant. So, you know, you think of love in terms of you know, family and friends, but how about people you didn't know? How about people you thought, you know, they were acquaintances and stepped up? So I mean, the whole experience has truly strengthened my faith. You know, I believe more in humanity than I did before. I mean, there are good things and great deeds being done every day. Ours is just one example of somebody who loved me enough to stick to my side and plow down any obstacle to get to the goal of getting a transplant. And I think that we're just one example of many going on. And I hope that that's contagious. I hope the act of doing good deeds for people is burning inside their chest. I mean,
right.
because it's a desire, right? It's a desire to do better, make sure people around you are better than they were yesterday.
Angela, how has it changed your faith?
Oh, tremendously. I've learned to actually, if you can believe it, actually be quiet and just listen more closely to people, and that we are really, as a people, no matter what any of your affiliations are, we are way more alike than different. And I know that Maya Angelou, who's one of my favorite poets, writers, actress, said that, and that is really true. We are all more alike than we are different, and there are more good people in the world than bad. There's a microscopic amount of bad, you know. And I also learned that from a book I read that was written by John Wooden, My Personal Best. And
right now I see the perfect couple.
Oh,
the perfect message, and the timing of this message that you both convey could not come at a better time, especially with what's going on around the world today.
yes.
Absolutely.
Husbands and wives are learning so much from you, all of us, whether we have a girlfriend, wife, or whatever. We're learning more about ourselves right now. And we're certainly learning that we need to enhance our faith right now.
You know, and I think that, you know,
as we close out our story, we have about 20 seconds. Angela, conclude our story today.
Oh, you know, keep the faith, keep your chin up, and just move forward. Do something good. Go check on your neighbors. You can do it on the smallest scale. Go check on your neighbor. Call your mom. Call your dad. Tell them you love them if you have them.
What do you say as we conclude our story today?
Never ever lose hope. And I think that if you just take it one day at a time, the simplest and the silliest things in the world, the things that we get mad at, have no significance. Keep it on a bigger scale. Think about how you can affect people. Don't give up. Keep love in your heart and do it for the right reasons. You cannot go wrong. You cannot go wrong.
Thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
And we'll have to do it again sometime because I'm being overrun with messages on my telephone right now about their feelings about the both of you and how it's touching people everywhere. God bless you both. Thank you for conveying your story and being so candid today on this show. Thank you
Thank you.
so much.
Thank you.
Henry, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Amen.
God bless you.
Made my day. See you soon.
See you
Okay,
soon.
buddy.
Bye-bye.
Wow.
Whew. Whew.
Wow. We're going to talk about Lobo football right now, some way, somehow. And my good friend Fred Hultberg is going to keep me together right now. But he's a walking love story as well. He loves his family. He treats us all so special. He's the greatest Lobo fan of all time. Believe it or not, he has seen more athletic events at the University of New Mexico than Henry T. And Fred is with me right now. Fred, tilt your camera down so we can see your face, buddy. And we'll get him all situated there. Everybody wants to be at the bottom of the screen, so we have him tilt the camera so we can be up here. And but believe it or not, Fred has been to more Lobo events than I have. And I thought I was the all-time greatest Lobo fan until I met this man several years ago, Fred Hultberg. And he saves his tickets to all the Lobo events, but he goes to every event, not just the major sports, to every event. And we'll bring Fred up here in a second once he tilts that camera up. But he's a great friend, and he's a great friend of yours. Fred, welcome, buddy. How you doing today?
Hey, it's my computer, so I can't tilt it at all. So I could get so hopefully I see my face. Hopefully that's
Now,
good
you're in
enough.
good shape.
All right.
You won't exaggerate. But how are you?
I'm doing good, especially after the Lobo football team won that wonderful game, and the Lady Lobos came back from 23-9 and came back to win that road game. And what what the team's going through, Henry, it's crazy. I just had tears in my eyes after we won that game. I don't know about you, but I actually was crying after that game. I just couldn't believe it. It was just so neat to know what the kids have gone through for all that time. Can you imagine 6 weeks of just staying in a hotel, not being able to go anywhere, eating at the hotel, sleeping, and even the drive. They drive, 45 minutes to get to the practice field and 45 minutes back. And gosh darn, it's got to be tough on those Lobo guys. And I'm so proud of the team and the coaches.
You know, you've watched more athletic events than anybody at the University of New Mexico. And I finally conceded the title to you because I've been going to Lobo games since I was a little bitty kid, taking the bus from the North Valley. And I can name you a bunch of athletes over the years, but you stole my thunder. Nobody has seen more Lobo games than Fred Hultberg, ladies and gentlemen. And the other night, thousands of Lobo fans are thinking about you. I bet Fred Hultberg is losing it. And how does this victory, if there's anywhere to possibly compare this Lobo win over others, thousands you've seen, what's the difference? Why are you so emotional about this one?
It's hard to say that this is the biggest upset of all time, but it's one of the bigger ones because, we're 18-point underdogs and no one thought we could win this game, especially after the last couple of games of what has happened. And then, of course, to lose your fourth-string quarterback and now you're going to your fifth string. And I was so happy for Chavez to get in there and get his chance. And, of course, he was trying as hard as he could, but the kid probably had a week of practices all as the number 2 or the backup quarterback. So the defense, the offense won it at the end because of the pass by Chavez, but the defense won the game, the whole game. It was incredible, the interceptions, the the fumbles, and we created all the fumbles too. That's what's important. A lot of times, teams will just fumble, but you can show it. The announcers, they were on our side. Boy, it was amazing how they talked about the Lobos and just how great of an upset this was and how great of a win it was. And Rocky and Danny and all the coaches, what they've turned this team into. I get kind of mad when people talk about, oh, well, the thing is we haven't won a game, big deal. But if you watch all the defense, what they do, the game tackling, that's what I love. That's what Rocky always did is his game tackling, and we game tackle all the time. And to see the New Mexico kids, like I heard Danny this morning talking about Miller from Las Cruces. God, what a great thing for Miller to do. Here he's lived in Cruces his whole life, Henry, and he decides he's not going to state. He's going to UNM, and he doesn't get the chance because he gets hurt a couple of times. And Rocky, I guess Rocky and Danny have really given Miller now this chance, and he's turning into he had 8 tackles, and it just everything. The Erickson kid, from Monzano, and the Williams kid from Rio Rancho, and it's just a great win, and I'm just so happy.
Names, Fred, that are going to go down in history, and right now they're folk heroes in New Mexico. Isaiah Chavez will be known now as one of the most famous Lobo quarterbacks ever because of that touchdown pass. The other Lobos on the field will carry that same banner. But like we give tribute to quarterbacks every day, they get more credit than they deserve. They get more criticism than they deserve. But when it's time to give a quarterback credit for a victory like that, Isaiah Chavez will sign autographs forever in this state. Do you agree?
Well, I agree. I tell you what's kind of cool, I think, Henry, and I know you know of this guy, but everybody's kind of comparing it to Justin Malaya when Kelly got hurt, and then Cole was supposed to be the quarterback, and then I know he'll never forget what he did. He got caught drinking. He went home for a couple of days, got caught drinking, and we didn't have a quarterback. And so, Justin was a great quarterback in Silver City, but they didn't want him to be a quarterback. They wanted him to be a safety or a defensive.
I agree with you to a point, but we haven't had a victory in so long. We needed one for so long. I think Isaiah edges out Malaya in his popularity today, the compelling meaning of his past versus others. He's being talked about all over the state today. Everybody in our state knows the name Isaiah Chavez. And I can hardly wait to get his autograph myself. I can hardly wait to talk to him and get him on the air and share his words with all New Mexico. He's probably the most sought after interview right now, and we're all going to get him. It's all love and war and fair play in this game, but we'll all get him. But, it's a young man who grew up in Albuquerque, played his high school football, played baseball at North Valley Little League, eventually played football for the Vikings at Valley High, and gone through all the steps, a walk-on at UNM that never played. He seldom played, let me put it that way. Rocky Long took a liking to him and saw his ability to teach and coach, becomes a part of the staff, and moves on with Rocky to San Diego State. Just Danny's story is incredible. How about for you?
Oh, I agree. I've known Danny for a long time because I remember he had a daughter that was in our tennis program, and I've always just loved Danny, and you can just tell it. Danny loves New Mexico and loves the people here in New Mexico, and like Rocky actually learned to love New Mexico, and now he has, but I just love Danny. I hate to take away from the defense. So I know we're talking about Chavis, but I'm just so excited for the defense. You know, you got Shook and Noble and Miller and Peak and Hannah and all these names that we heard. And you know, it's just so neat that the defense, you know, the defense never gets credit for a lot of things like they should. It's always the offense. It's always the
Well, I think there's a rebirth in every member of that team. The starters to the fifth stringers, their position, Lobo football to them as athletes is they're all so happy to be there. And they're fighting with all their might to be the best athletes they can for the entire state of New Mexico. And you saw it the other night. Rocky's defense was reborn last Saturday night. Now that was Rocky defense, forcing a fumble to take the ball away in the waning moments of that game when Wyoming is going in to take the lead away from the Lobos. Those Lobos wouldn't put up with it. They wanted that victory so bad. That was a goal line stand that'll beat all goal line stands because of the fumble and the fumble recovery and that celebration at the end. Not only did Danny get one bucket of Gatorade or water, he got two. What a moment in time. That was an emotional scene that filled the hearts of every Lobo fan, enough for them to call the Lobo ticket office today and rebuy their Lobo season tickets for next year. I'd be willing to bet that's going on right now, if they're open down there at all.
I don't think they are. Hey, Henry, one thing that no one's talked about much was during the game, and you'll remember, during the middle of the game, twice our defense had the Wyoming had a 3rd down and 2, and they ended up being 4th down and 1, and we stopped them 2 different times on those plays where, I mean, in the middle of the game. And that's, I mean, how many times you stop Wyoming, who runs the ball, and Smith has 150 yards that game, and we actually stopped them twice at the middle of the game too. The defense was just incredible. I don't know if I've ever seen a better defensive struggle that the Lobos put up. They were just great.
Yeah. So what do you say to Lobo fans about really now, let's get loyal again? Do you see great moments ahead? You're a visionary guy, Fred. You always have been. What do you see in your crystal ball?
Well,
what is your vision for the future?
I tell you what, I just hope and pray that this pandemic thing is over and we can actually, because I'll tell you what, I really think our crowd will be a sellout the first game. I don't even know who we play. I'm not even worried about, I'm worried about our next game that we play, against Fresno State. I've got about 15 friends that really didn't have season tickets that are definitely buying season tickets for the game next year. And so I can just imagine really a sellout. I really do. I think we just need to educate the people and prove to the people how great we can be and how our coaches and how they love being here in New Mexico, and especially Rocky and Danny. I hate to not give all the other coaches credit because, these are all Danny's friends and Rocky's friends and that. But I think that we recognize these two guys because Rocky, what he did for New Mexico for football, probably
Fred, will our governor take even a closer look now and look at the excitement this football team has done for her state? Every quadrant of our state, every person in our state was the recipient of that pass the other night from Isaiah Chavez. And they felt something special when the referee put his hands up, touchdown. And every fan felt the fumble recovery the other night and saw the celebration and were touched by it. I hope our governor had that same reception of that special touch, and that she will look at it closer today and give all New Mexico fans a home game before it's over, so we can go fill that stadium and express our gratitude to Danny Gonzalez and Rocky and all the staff and all those Lobos who have been through that gut check, their dedication, living out in Las Vegas, Nevada for all these weeks. And so she can repay that total effort and give an exciting moment in time to all the fans who would love to be, who would have loved to have been at Boyd Stadium the other night in Vegas. I hope that there's a breakthrough so we can go fill University Stadium and watch the Lobos at least one game this season. Does that make any sense at all?
It makes total sense to me. I'm hoping and praying, and I think we all are. We're all hoping that for basketball, that sooner or later that we're going to be able to maybe not watch the game, but have the kids come back and play in their hometown and be with their dogs and their wives and their girlfriends and all that kind of stuff, and not have to live the way they have to live, because they really don't have to. I mean, that's been proven by all the colleges and everybody that you can actually do what they're doing and have a bubble and be safe. Our Lobos have been, they're safer than we are. That's the thing that's been proven. All the players around the country, they're really safer than we can ever be because of all the tests and everything they do. So let's hope and pray that we play here for basketball very soon. And I understand it's really bad right now.
I'm talking football right now. Would you like to see University Stadium filled with fans? I mean, 6 feet apart, as many fans as we can fit in there. Wouldn't that be something special for Danny, his football staff, and those kids? We have 30 seconds left, Fred. Finish up.
Well, we won't see it this year, play football here, Henry, because we only have one game to go, Fresno State. But thanks for having me on, Henry. I know you're the greatest sportscaster around as far as you've covered every sport there is. You started everything. You've begun baseball for the Lobos, basketball for the Lobos. You got everything started, Henry. Congratulations on that. And thanks again for having me on. I really appreciate it.
God bless you, Fred. Fred Hultberg. Wow. What a story. And he feels it. And make sure all of us contribute. We're going to get Fred a trophy and literally finalize the documentation that he is New Mexico's #1 fan of all time. Thank you to Chris and Angela Moya today as well. Thank you to our producer, Jimmy Tran. We're going to say bye now. And thank you for all of those people, all our technical people down at ProView Network and GovTV and Comcast 26 and to all our sponsors right there. Have a great, great day. I'm Henry T. We'll see you again on Wednesday right here. All right, Henry T. GameFace Live. Spread the word. Watch these stories again later on today. See you later.
my car?
State Farm knows that for every one of those moments,
This is ridiculous!
there's one of these.
Is this my car? What? This is ridiculous.
This can't be happening!
This can't be happening.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Oh, it's happening, sweetheart.
Shut up.
Shut up!
Ah!
That's why State Farm is there.